I once thought lawyers had no soul. Then again, maybe it was just him. Ethan Cole, the man every courtroom whispered about. The man whose stare could make opponents sweat through their $1,000 suits. The man who treated emotions like weaknesses. And here I was, his assistant, stuck fetching coffee and carrying the weight of a secret no one else knew. I was falling in love with the one man least capable of loving anyone back. The first time he looked at me, it wasn't with warmth. It wasn't even with recognition. It was a measuring gaze, the way you'd assess whether a tool was sharp enough to be useful. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that from that moment, I felt like my heart was no longer mine. New York buzzed outside his glass-walled office, the city alive with chaos, ambition, and hunger. Inside, Ethan's world was different. Precise, calculated, silent except for the clicking of his pen as he dissected lives and arguments with the same cold efficiency. People said he'd never lost a case. They also said he'd never loved a soul. And I believed them, until he started proving me wrong. Ethan's office wasn't just an office seat, it was a battlefield. The mahogany desk gleamed with ruthless perfection, every file stacked like weapons, every book on the shelf a silent soldier waiting to be summoned. And then there was me, standing at the edge of that battlefield every morning, holding a cup of his coffee exactly the way he liked it. Black, strong, no sugar, no cream. Bitter like him. Late, he muttered one morning without glancing up. His eyes were glued to a contract thick enough to crush me if dropped. It's 8:59, I countered carefully, trying to sound casual. His head lifted, and I immediately regretted it. Ethan's stare wasn't just a stare, it was a verdict. Cold, sharp, final. Late, he repeated, before lowering his gaze again. I swallowed hard. God, why did I take this job? There were dozens of firms in New York desperate for assistance. But something about him, something about the way he carried himself, like he was untouchable, had drawn me in. I told myself it was ambition. Deep down, I knew better. Our first weeks together were hell. He demanded perfection. One typo, one missed call, and he'd scold me in that calm, cutting tone that hurt more than shouting ever could. Yet there were moments, fleeting, almost invisible, when the ice cracked. Like the time his hand brushed mine as we both reached for the same file. His touch was electric, though his expression stayed blank. Or the late nights when he loosened his tie, eyes tired, and for just a second he looked human. Vulnerable even. Those glimpses kept me tethered, even when I swore I'd quit. The real test came on a Tuesday 3 weeks in. We were preparing for a brutal case against a pharmaceutical giant. Ethan's strategy was flawless, as always, but the mountain of evidence was suffocating. By midnight, the office was a graveyard of papers and empty takeout boxes. You can go, he said finally, his voice low. I looked at him, surprised. What about you? He didn't answer, just kept flipping through depositions. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, veins visible along his forearm, his tie discarded. He looked different, less like a weapon, more like a man. Something in me refused to leave. I'll stay. You shouldn't go through this alone. For the first time, his hands paused. His eyes lifted to mine, unreadable. Do you think I'm weak? The question hit me like a slap. What? No, that's not what I... Then don't say things like that. He cut in, voice steel again. But I saw it. Flicker so fast I almost missed it. Pain. Loneliness. So I stayed. Quietly, without another word. I sat across from him and organized the files. We worked until dawn, side by side, our silence more intimate than any conversation. From then on, something shifted. Ethan didn't become warm, God forbid, but he became aware. His eyes lingered longer when I spoke. He started remembering things I mentioned. My sister's birthday, the fact that I hated olives, the song I hummed when I thought no one was listening. It was terrifying, how much hope a single glance could give me. And then came the night that changed everything. The case was brutal, a media circus. Reporters hounded us, clients panicked, and inside the courtroom, Ethan was a god. Watching him work was like watching fire take shape, dangerous, mesmerizing, impossible to look away from. But gods still bleed. One evening, after a particularly vicious day in court, I found him in his office with a glass of whiskey. He was slouched in his chair, tie undone, staring at the skyline. For the first time, he looked defeated. Without thinking, I closed the door behind me. "You okay?" His laugh was humorless. "Do I look okay?" I stepped closer. "You look like you need someone to tell you it's going to be fine." "Don't." His voice was sharp, but softer than usual. "Don't what?" "Don't try to fix me." His eyes met mine, and I swear, I stopped breathing. "You'll only get hurt." I should have walked away. I should have nodded, left the office, gone home, and reminded myself that Ethan Cole was untouchable. But instead, I whispered, "Maybe I don't care." Silence. Heavy. Electric. And then his hand moved just slightly, brushing mine where it rested on the edge of his desk. Not enough to call it a touch, but enough to ignite every nerve in my body. After that night, the line between us blurred. He was still my boss, still cold and demanding in public. But behind closed doors, there were moments that felt like stolen secrets. His hand lingering too long when passing me a file. The rare, almost invisible smile when I made a sarcastic remark. The way his eyes softened, just for a heartbeat, when he thought I wasn't looking. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I was risking everything, my job, my heart, my sanity. But I couldn't stop. Because for all his walls and shadows, Ethan Cole was teaching me something I never expected. Even the coldest hearts can tremble. The breaking point came on a rainy Friday night. We had just one emotion that could turn the entire case in our favor. The team went out to celebrate, but Ethan, of course, stayed behind. And so did I. The rain hammered against the windows as we worked in silence. At some point, the power flickered, plunging us into darkness. I gasped, and then felt his presence beside me, closer than ever before. "Don't move," he said softly. His hand found mine in the dark. Firm, steady, real. My breath hitched. "Ethan." The lights snapped back on, and he let go instantly, stepping back as if burned. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, God, his eyes betrayed him. I wanted to speak, to ask, to beg, but he turned away, his voice cold again. "Go home, Alex." And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me falling for him. This was about him fighting something he didn't know how to face. That night, lying awake in my tiny apartment, I replayed every glance, every touch, every word. I knew I was in too deep. I knew he was dangerous, not in the way of violence, but in the way he could destroy me without ever trying. But I also knew something else. I was already his. Ethan and I had been circling each other for weeks, two magnets caught between attraction and resistance. But as the case heated up, so did we. Every day the courtroom felt like war, and every night the office felt like something else entirely, something I couldn't name without sounding insane. And maybe I was insane, because who in their right mind falls in love with Ethan Cole, a man who built walls so high no one dared climb them? But here's the thing about walls. Sometimes they're built not to keep people out, but to keep pain in. The turning point came with a witness, someone who had worked inside the pharmaceutical company. He was crucial. He was scared. And he was ready to run. I was the one who found him on the courthouse steps that morning, chain smoking like his lungs weren't already half gone. "They'll destroy me if I testify," he muttered. "They'll destroy you if you don't," I said before I could stop myself. My voice was shaking, but I stood my ground. That's when Ethan appeared, like he always did, out of nowhere, sharp as a blade. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at the man with those steel gray eyes. And somehow that was enough. The witness exhaled, nodded, and walked back inside. I stayed frozen on the steps, staring at Ethan. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" he asked, already heading back inside. "Make people listen. Make them believe you." He glanced back at me, and for the first time, there was something almost vulnerable in his expression. "Because I don't give them a choice." It should have been terrifying. Instead, it made me want him more. That night, after another 12-hour day, we were alone again in his office. The rain had returned, pounding against the glass, and the city felt far away. "You were good with him?" Ethan said suddenly, his back to me as he poured himself a drink. "Good." I blinked. Compliments from Ethan were rarer than eclipses. "You have a way of making people trust you," he said, still not looking at me. "That's a skill. Is that your way of saying thank you?" I teased, my heart pounding. Finally, he turned. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were burning. "Don't push me, Alex." And I should have stopped. But I didn't. "Maybe you need to be pushed," I whispered. The silence stretched, thick and dangerous. Then he was across the room, too close, his hand braced on the desk beside me. I could feel the heat of him, the storm in his chest. "You don't know what you're asking for," he said, voice low. "Then show me." I breathed, and for the first time Ethan Cole kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was fire and fury and years of repressed need exploding at once. His mouth was demanding, his hands gripping my shoulders like he was trying to anchor himself, and I kissed him back with everything I had, pouring every ounce of longing and fear and reckless hope into that moment. When he finally pulled away, his forehead pressed against mine, we were both shaking. "This can't happen," he whispered. "But it did," I whispered back. He closed his eyes, as if fighting a war inside himself. And then he stepped away, putting distance between us again. "Go home, Alex." I should have felt rejected. Instead, I felt alive. The days that followed were torture. In public, nothing changed. Ethan was the same cold, ruthless lawyer. To the outside world, I was just his assistant. But behind closed doors, every glance, every brush of his hand, every silence felt charged with something unspoken. And then came the dinner. The firm was hosting a gala to celebrate a recent win. Everyone was there, partners, associates, clients. Ethan, of course, was the star of the night, his presence commanding the room. And me? I was invisible. At least I was supposed to be. But halfway through the night, as I stood awkwardly near the bar, I felt his eyes on me. Not the cold, assessing stare of my boss. No, this was different. This was Ethan looking at me like I was the only person in the room. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. And then someone else approached him, a woman, tall, elegant, draped in diamonds. She kissed him on the cheek, and he smiled. Actually smiled. My stomach twisted. I knew it was fake. I knew it was part of the image, but it didn't matter. Because for the first time, I saw what I was up against. Not just Ethan's walls, but the entire world that expected him to be someone else. I left early that night, slipping out before anyone noticed. Or so I thought. Because the next morning, Ethan cornered me in his office. "Why did you leave?" he demanded. I blinked. "You noticed." Of course I noticed. His voice was sharp, but his eyes were something else. "I didn't belong there," I said quietly. "Not next to you." For a long moment he just stared at me. Then he muttered, almost to himself, "You belong more than anyone else." My heart stopped. But before I could reply, his phone rang, and just like that, the moment was gone. The case reached its peak in the following weeks, and so did the tension between us. Late nights blurred into early mornings, coffee turned into whiskey, and somewhere between depositions and strategy meetings, I stopped being just his assistant. I became his confidant, his shadow, his weakness, and he became mine. But love, especially forbidden love, never comes without a price. The first crack came from outside. Someone in the firm noticed the way Ethan looked at me. Whispers started. A senior partner pulled me aside one afternoon, his tone dripping with condescension. "Careful, Alex. Don't mistake kindness for opportunity. Men like Ethan don't settle." I wanted to snap back, to defend what we had, but the words stuck in my throat. Because what did we have, really? A handful of stolen moments and a kiss that haunted me every night? Still, the doubt gnawed at me. And Ethan, for all his brilliance, must have sensed it. One night, as we left the office together, he stopped me on the sidewalk. "Are you afraid?" he asked suddenly. "Of what?" "Of this." He gestured between us, his expression unreadable. I swallowed hard. Terrified. "So am I," he admitted. His voice was barely audible over the city noise. "But I don't want to stop." And just like that, the fear didn't matter. The night we finally crossed the line, it wasn't planned. It wasn't calculated. We were at his apartment for the first time, going over trial prep. The place was exactly what I expected. Sleek, modern, devoid of warmth. But as the hours passed, something shifted. His jacket came off. His tie loosened. And when our hands brushed on the couch, neither of us pulled away. One look. That was all it took. The kiss was different this time. Slower. Deeper. Like he was memorizing me. And when we finally gave in, when the walls crashed down and we let ourselves fall, it wasn't fire and fury anymore. It was everything. Afterward, lying in the dark, his arm around me, I heard him whisper something I never thought I'd hear. "You make me feel alive, Alex." And for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't doomed. But of course, I was wrong. Because love this dangerous never stays hidden for long. And the storm was only just beginning. Secrets don't stay secrets forever. Especially not in New York. Especially not in a law firm where gossip traveled faster than case files. It started with whispers. A partner raising an eyebrow when Ethan asked for me instead of another associate. And in turn noticing how late our office lights stayed on. And then the rumors reached the people who mattered, the kind who could destroy careers with a single conversation. Ethan heard first. I knew because the moment he walked into his office one morning, his jaw was clenched tight, his eyes sharper than I'd ever seen. He didn't even sit. "They know," he said flatly. My chest tightened. "Who?" "Everyone who matters." His hands curled into fists at his sides. "The partners. The board. They think I've compromised the firm." The words felt like knives. Compromised? Because of me. His eyes flicked to mine, softer now, pained. Because of us. That night, the argument erupted. "You knew this would happen?" Ethan said, pacing his apartment like a caged animal. "I knew we were taking a risk," I snapped back. "But I didn't think you'd throw me under the bus the second things got hard." His glare was fire and ice all at once. "You think this is easy for me? I've spent my whole life building this career, this reputation. One slip, one rumor, and it all comes crashing down. And what about me?" My voice cracked. "You think I don't care about my job? My future? But I care about you more, Ethan. Isn't that worth something?" For a moment, silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then his voice dropped, raw and low. "It's worth everything. And that's the problem." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can't do this," he whispered. His back was to me now, shoulders rigid, as if he couldn't bear to face me. "We can't keep going like this. It'll destroy us both." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "So that's it? You're just going to end it?" The silence was answer enough. I left that night, slamming the door behind me, tears burning down my face. The weeks that followed were agony. At work, we were strangers again. Cold. Professional. Ethan barked orders, and I obeyed. My chest hollow every time he avoided my eyes. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop loving him. And I saw it, too, the way his hand lingered a moment too long on the conference table after I set down his files, the way his gaze followed me when he thought no one was watching. He was breaking as much as I was. But neither of us knew how to fix it. Until the trial. The courtroom was a war zone. The pharmaceutical giant had unleashed everything they had: money, power, lawyers twice my age with 10 times the experience. And Ethan? He was flawless, ruthless, brilliant, but even gods bleed. The cross-examination turned ugly. The defense dug into the credibility of our key witness, painting him as unstable, unreliable. The case began slipping through our fingers. During recess, Ethan locked himself in his office, his hands gripping the edge of his desk so tightly his knuckles went white. "We're losing," he said, his voice hollow. I stepped closer, my chest pounding. "Then fight harder. That's what you do, isn't it? You never lose." His eyes flicked to mine, tortured. "Not this time." Not when everything's on the line. And before I could stop myself, I reached out, covering his hand with mine. You're not alone, Ethan. Not anymore. For the first time in weeks, his hand didn't pull away. The final day of trial was chaos. The gallery was packed, the press hungry for blood. Ethan delivered the closing argument like a man possessed, his words slicing through the lies and corruption of the pharmaceutical giant. He was fire, unrelenting, unstoppable. When the jury returned the verdict guilty on all counts, the courtroom erupted. Clients wept. Reporters shouted. But all I saw was Ethan. He looked at me across the room, and for once, there was no wall, no mask. Just raw, unguarded emotion. That night, he came to my apartment. I opened the door to find him standing there, soaked from the rain, his suit clinging to him. Ethan, before I could say more, he kissed me. Desperate, hungry, alive. I tried, he gasped between kisses. God, Alex, I tried to let you go, but I can't. I can't breathe without you. And I broke completely and utterly. I don't want you to, I whispered. Not anymore. We spent the night together, no walls, no secrets. For the first time, it wasn't about stolen moments or forbidden touches. It was about love. Real, terrifying, undeniable love. When dawn came, Ethan lay beside me, his arm draped over my waist, his breath steady against my neck. And for once, he looked peaceful. Do you regret it? I asked softly. His eyes opened, gray and clear. Only that I wasted so much time pretending I didn't need you. The storm didn't vanish overnight. The firm still whispered. The world still judged. But we stopped caring. Ethan didn't resign, and neither did I. Instead, he faced the board with the same ruthlessness he wielded in court. Judge me by my results, not my personal life, he said. And what could they say? He was Ethan Cole, the man who never lost. As for me, I stayed by his side. Not just as his assistant, but as his partner, his equal, his heart. Months later, as we walked hand in hand through Central Park, the city glowing around us, I thought about the boy I'd been when I first walked into his office, the boy who thought Ethan Cole had no soul. How wrong I'd been. He had a soul. A messy, scarred, beautiful soul. And somehow, impossibly, it belonged to me. Ethan squeezed my hand, his lips brushing my ear. Still think I'm cold-hearted? I laughed, leaning into him. Only when you forget to kiss me goodnight. And there, in the middle of the city that once felt so unforgiving, we found something stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. We found love, the kind that trembles, breaks, heals, and lasts. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.